Hi, I'm Barrie Rose, and in this podcast, I talk to content creators and advocates in the progressive space, ultimately making the world a better place. Great start.
Hi,
Hi, Ariella.
hi, Barry.
Hi. So, I see you as a political content creator and journalist who highlights the wins of the day in Daily Dems, but you're also part of the LGBTQ plus community and Jewish, right?
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself and how do you identify?
Um, so I describe myself as a queer Jew. I describe myself as, in Jewish terms, I call myself culturally Jewish, which is one of the really beautiful things about Judaism. There's no requirement that you have to believe in God or believe certain traditions or whatever. It's about whatever parts of Judaism speak to you. And for me, that's the traditions that my family has held. That is the values. The value that is most closely related to what I do is Tikkun Olam, which means repairing the
Hmm.
world. And my entire being is kind of based in that value. The idea that we are always working to make things better. My rabbi, who actually bat mitzvahed me a long time ago, she has become one of the major voices in the Jewish political world. Her name is Rabbi Sharon Brous, and she said that it's not we're not trying to fix the world. We're not trying to make it so that it was never broken. It's kind of like you're taking braids of frayed edges. You're taking frayed edges and turning it into braids so that it's stronger because it was broken. And that's, I think, one of the most hopeful things I've heard, especially now with everything going on in the world, that we are never going to replace what happened. We are never going to get rid of it. It's always going to be part of our history. Even what's happening now, what's happening with immigrants, what's happening with the queer community, what's happening with the trans community, what's happening with SNAP and Medicaid, everything. But we will get those frayed edges, and we will be able to braid them into something stronger. And so that is so intrinsic to my entire identity and kind of what I base my identity on. In terms of my queer identity, I exist. I mean, that's kind of the way I think of it. I don't think about gender very carefully. I don't think about sexuality very carefully. I just exist. When I was at camp in sixth grade, I had a friend who said, "I don't have a gender. I don't think about and it was it was like 2005, I think. And no one, I didn't, the word agender didn't mean anything. I mean, it barely means anything now to most people. But it that kind of resonates with me, the idea of it's not important, and it's not something that I like focusing on. And I think that we're just people, and I hate those phrases. I think they sound very pedantic, but yeah. So I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
those are, and it's hard because I don't present, I feel like I don't present as non-binary enough to consider myself that, but I just don't care. And that's personally how it reflects in my life. That didn't make sense, but we'll go with
Yeah, it
it.
makes total sense. I mean, okay, you just dropped a lot of beautiful wisdom bombs of beauty. Like the frayed edges to braids. I really love that. But I mean, to note on what you just said, like the conversation you had in sixth grade where that person said, like, I don't have a gender, or I don't feel a gender. I mean, I feel like these concepts have existed, but like
Yeah.
only in the last couple of years we've had words for them, and sometimes words like help us understand what's going on. And as far as like not being non-binary enough, I feel like there's no such thing. Like it's not necessarily how you present on the outside, it's just how you feel on the inside. So if that meant something to you, like you could totally claim it and that's for you to
Yeah.
decide. But I feel like in the queer community, like that comes up a lot, like not feeling like you're enough to claim a certain title, but really it's just whatever really resonates for you, and it's all to help you understand yourself more and to help like contextualize your experience in the world when communicating to someone. So if a label helps you, then that's nice, but if it doesn't, then you don't need one.
Yeah. I think
And
that,
I feel like, yeah, and on the idea of gender, it's like, I feel like Lorenzo and I talk about gender a lot in our content or like online, but like in our daily life, like we don't talk about it at all, really. Like once in a while, maybe. But I feel like once you get like a deep understanding of who you are, it really doesn't matter anymore. Or once you have people that you feel like see you and aren't like projecting who they think you are, but they're just seeing you, then you stop really needing labels.
I think there's like this unintended hierarchy in the queer community where
Oh.
people are like, I'm more queer than this person. There's like a competition that feels like happens, especially online. I mean, I'm mostly talking about online, but there's definitely this competition that I see online. And so there's this idea of if you're not queer enough, you're not allowed to have a voice in this conversation. You're not allowed to have an opinion. I mean, I get so many people are like, well, you're a cis white woman, so why are you talking about this? And it's just this automatic assumption, which is amusing a little bit coming from people who are like, but you shouldn't assume about me and then assume about other people. It almost feels like I'm disabled. I have a lot of invisible disabilities. And it's hard to feel accepted into, it's a lot easier to be accepted into the disability community, but a lot harder to be accepted as a disabled person. And I think that's kind of the same thing with the queer community in a lot of ways, that when you are invisibly queer, that doesn't totally make sense, but that kind of idea, when you're not like very front facing about your queerness, when someone can't clock you just by walking down the street, it's a much different situation, I think. And there's a sense of like, well, do I really belong in this community? And it's not because people who are wonderful and lovely are making you feel that way, but there are a lot of people who think that kind of everything has to be based in clicks, and I think that's also a younger generation thing. And so it's really interesting, like seeing it both from the outside and the inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes. I mean, so you have also like invisible disabilities. So you have so many intersecting identities that
Yeah.
seem to like all inform what you do. Do, do you feel like, I mean, okay, yeah, it is interesting that it's like hard to belong to a community when you're not like noticeable in that community. I mean, I get that. I have some invisible disabilities myself, but then I can't, I don't like say I'm part of the disabled community because I don't really know. I feel that what you feel or what you're expressing, that like when is it right to claim something, and when are you like allowed to take space in this kind of marginalized community? I don't know. I mean, how you said something about it's easier to fit into the disabled community. What did you mean by that?
I think that the disabled community on social media is a lot more accepting of invisible disabilities than the queer community on social media is of people who don't look outwardly queer. And because like there's a definitely a, I mean, the reason that I know some of my invisible disabilities are because of social media, because I saw people on social media. I was like, wait a minute, that fits how I'm feeling. And then I got diagnosed. Things like I was diagnosed with POTS because it was hard for me to make my bed. I started fainting when I made my, didn't totally faint, but I got close to it. I couldn't take a shower because I almost started fainting. People are like, oh, it's iron. You need more iron. And I did need more iron, but that wasn't all it was. And I watched someone video where they had a dog, they had a dog that told their dog, like patted them on the knee when it seemed like they were about to faint. And I'm like, wait, I can't do dishes either. what is this? And so I looked in the caption and it said POTS. And I'm like, well, that's something I haven't heard before. And so I Googled it and I looked up the symptoms. I'm like, wait a minute. That sounds like exactly what I have. And my mom's friend, who's a doctor, came over and she tested me. It's a blood pressure test, and so you do it while lying down, while sitting up, and while standing. And if your heart rate spikes when you stand up, from if you lie down and then you sit up and stand up, and your heart rate just spikes to high heavens when you stand up, or when you sit up and then stand up, you have POTS. My doctor told me she couldn't even get a test for me. She fought hard to get me it's called a tilt table test. And she fought hard to get it for me. And when I went in for it, it was 2 minutes into them just testing my blood pressure and hearing my symptoms. They were like, yeah, you have POTS. We're going to do the whole test, but you have POTS. So it's, I don't know, with invisible disabilities, there's even with, though they're invisible, there's still a diagnosis. And it's not just kind of me saying that I have this, though that is a whole thing, especially in the mental health world, because not all therapists are willing to diagnose for things. Like I'm fairly confident I'm autistic, but my therapist will not test me for it because she doesn't think it's important to do right now. I love my therapist. I think she's one of the greatest people on the planet, but she still won't test me for it. So I think that it's a lot easier, especially because there's all these communities that are trying to promote invisible disabilities. And I think in the queer world, there's a lot of promoting visible queerness. And there's a lot of promoting people that fit into certain boxes. Even though there are so many different boxes, we're talking about boxes. What are your pronouns? How do you look? Do you have short hair? Do you whatever? Like there are these different, and so it's hard to be like, well, I don't totally fit into that, but I'm still queer. I still have my own queer experience because of that. And I think that's also because a lot of people are starting to grow up knowing that they're queer, which is a very different world than I grew up in. I mean, my GSA at school was called FLAG because, meaning Friends of Lesbians and Gays, because there were no out queer kids at my school. It turns out most people who were in FLAG, you would be shocked to know, are now queer. But at the time, no one was out, so it was just called Friends of Lesbians and Gays because there were no actual lesbians and gays in the club. So that it's a different world and it's a different way that I grew up. And so I think that there's this sense of if you're not willing to be what I believe you should be, what I've been shown through Tumblr and through TikTok and whatever, then maybe you don't fit into my box. So that's been a really interesting thing to see about how people approach different kinds of queerness and different kinds of identities.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the nature of queerness is that it's different.
Yeah.
So even your experience that not feeling like you fit into a box, that is still valid because that's your experience and that is like the definition of queerness.
Yeah.
So okay, were you in that club? Were you in the flag?
Yeah, I was. I was in it from sixth grade till senior year. Once I left, they changed the name to Pride, and I don't actually know what Pride stands for. I do know there were queer kids in the club by the time I left, but there were like it's just really interesting how much things have changed. It's one thing that makes me so sad about the younger generation that they don't remember what it was like before now. They're like, oh, nothing has changed. Democrats don't do anything. And I'm like, but it's only been 10 years since Obergefell. It's only been
Oh, yeah,
I I
2015.
I live in California. I remember Prop 8. I remember everything
Uh,
surrounding Prop 8. I remember when it wasn't legal in California. Like, and so people
mhm.
are like, "Oh, there's been no changes. Everything's the same. Democrats are moving to the right." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? Excuse me? Like, where did that come from? Like,
Oh my
you
gosh,
haven't
yeah.
known a world before Donald Trump. You haven't known a world when the Democrats weren't this far left. You haven't known a world when abortion wasn't an issue. All Democrats except for Cuellar, believe Cuellar. Ooh, I hope I get that right. Believe it. Like there's still two sitting Democrats that are anti-abortion. And they are in Texas, and they have not had primary challengers. But they are the last ones. That is the end of that. You cannot run for office as a Democrat and not be pro-choice. Like that is not possible anymore. You cannot run for office as a Democrat and not be pro-gay marriage. That's also not possible anymore. And those are such different things. And so I think there's definitely a separation between the younger and older generation. And I hate calling myself the older generation, but people who grew up, who went to school when there was no Instagram. Like I got an Instagram in my first year of college, that didn't grow up with that versus the people who did, because they just don't know what things used to be like and how recently it was.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, 10 years ago for gay marriage to be legalized is really like nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But it feels like things have made huge progress in the last couple years or decades. I mean, decade.
Yeah.
But I do remember the world when it wasn't like that as well. So did you grow up? Did your family just like embrace your queerness? Were you like out to them?
I mean,
And when
it's
did you even
fairly,
like come
it's
out?
it's not unembraced. It's just not talked about.
Yeah,
Really, it's just I don't love talking about things like that with my parents and with my
yeah,
family, and it's kind of like in my own life, I feel like if I'm not looking the way that, I mean, I know that's silly, but television shows really help with that. They really make you feel like if you're not one way, you're not doing the right thing. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not something I want to deal with. It's not something I want to try and explain. I've tried and explained it many times, and it's just not something I'm interested in explaining. Um, it's I don't know. I mean, yes, I
yeah.
did, but it was in a moment of distress involving a ton of other things, and
Mm,
it went nowhere, and I don't have a good answer for that. Like, yes, I did, but it didn't. It's not that it didn't stick. It's just that it didn't exist. It didn't matter. It's not something that I've
mm.
had to confront in that way, and I don't want to. I get weird about like I don't want to be not a problem, but I don't just want to have the conversation, so I just let it be, I guess, which is not the right answer, but that is the answer that I have taken in my life.
I don't think there is a right answer. I mean, it's the right answer for you at this time and maybe indefinitely or maybe forever. I feel like no, I don't know what your journey is going to entail, but I feel like
I
there
don't either.
is no right answer. um, it's just what's, and I feel like that conversation sometimes is many conversations. Like the first time I came out, my mom was like, "Oh, you're going through a bisexual phase." And then I shut it down for 10 years and never talked about it for a long time. But I maybe that's why I'm so like outspoken online because I had like internalized homophobia for a long time. But also, which another thing is, I had like an internalized, not anti Semitism, but like I didn't embrace my Jewishness or I guess Judaism, but
No, Jewishness is
because I
totally fine.
Jewishness. And I don't know if I told you, but like my original last name was Friedman. That was my dad's last name. And then when I was 18, literally the day I turned 18, I changed my last name from Friedman, or I just dropped it and I put my middle last name as my last name. And I did that because growing up, I was made fun of. Like people would say, like your name sounds like a Jewish lawyer, and it did, I guess. But oh well. And I was really embarrassed. And now I feel like really sad for that person because I wish I could have been like proud, which I feel a lot of pride now because I feel like being Jewish is a beautiful thing. There's so many cultural elements that I resonate with, and like customs and stuff like that that I would like to learn more about. But the question for you is, did you like have you ever always had like a Jewish pride? Have you always like felt resonance with your upbringing, your culture? Like how has your relationship been with that?
It's definitely changed. When I was a kid, my mom used to take me to shul, to synagogue, weekly. The synagogue that I grew up at, I was probably at more than I was at home. It was where my parents were married. It was where I was named. It was my whole life. I didn't love it, but it was my whole life. And then I went to like, we went to many different ones because we didn't like the rabbi there. And then we went to another one and we didn't love the rabbi. We kept bouncing around. Um, as I said, I had my bar mitzvah with Rabbi Sharon Brous, and I, who is the leading voice in activist Judaism. Like, if you look at anything that's happening in the world, she's incredible. I can't recommend her enough. The synagogue's e-car, and everyone should follow them. She posts her drashes, her sermons, and they're incredible. But I I was trained. I went to a school with a lot of Jewish kids, and they all hated it. And so I was planning on going to Hebrew High, which would have been after school Hebrew school, at a Hebrew school, at a Jewish high school in the area. And I didn't do it because I got embarrassed from kids in my class acting like Judaism. Like, I had swastikas written in my Latin book, not by a non-Jew, by Jews, because
Oh.
they were making fun of me for caring about being Jewish. And so I kind of dropped it for a lot of years. I didn't totally drop it. I always went to synagogue for the high holidays. We had family friends over for holidays. We did Hanukkah, stuff like that. But I tried to drop it from what I was interested in. I also went to a Jewish sleepaway camp. It's a organization called Habonim Dror, which it's a labor Zionist Jewish youth movement, but which is, I'm sure, going to make this the most unpopular post you've ever done. But it's we fought for Palestinian rights the entire time. It's a very left-wing Jewish movement that's focused on equality and equity and self-determination for everyone. And it's a really the people you see protesting in the streets of Israel, a lot of them are from Habonim. Actually, the people who started, if not now, are from Habonim. And so I grew up in this very left-wing Jewish community, this very anti-Bibi Netanyahu Jewish community, this we want to fight for a world where we're all safe and healthy and able to thrive in where we live, Jewish community. And that type of love for of fighting and of activism. I mean, it was so based in activism. It was so based in Tikkun Olam. It was so based in tzedakah, which is the Hebrew version of charity, but slightly different. It was so based in the idea of just protecting our heritage and learning about our heritage and learning to love our culture. And so I did that mostly in middle school, and then I did it a little bit in high school. But it wasn't until probably college that I was really like, okay, this is something I need to kind of go back to. And again, I never totally left, but it was hard in school to feel accepted if you were enjoyed being Jewish, if you didn't make fun of your b'nai mitzvah, if you didn't, yeah, I and I it makes me sad that I was having those experiences, but I also I'm really glad that I did find where Judaism fits into my life, and it's who I am. It drives everything I do, and it always has, and in some ways, and it always will. Sorry, that was a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh no, no, it was great. Thank you for sharing that. And you did talk a lot about like activism and, well, your rabbi, for instance. How do you, what is the, how, how does Judaism and activism align? Like, why is there such a connection between those two things?
Well, I mean, it comes down to Tikkun Olam. It comes down to repairing the world, and that's what activism is. That's what fighting for what's right is.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. That it also comes down to there's a Jewish saying, "A life is a life is a life is a life," which is
Oh,
why it's so painful to see so many awful Jewish humans who don't believe that. People like Randy Fine and Bibi Netanyahu and Smotrich and all these other horrible, horrible people, because that's just so intrinsic into what it means to be Jewish, is that
mm,
every life is precious and every life is just as important as another life. And to not to see people who don't believe that and to have them be in positions of power,
mm,
acting like
yeah.
that is what Judaism means, is just so despicable. And
Mm,
I mean, it harms being Jewish. I mean, right now it's so scary to be Jewish. I made a post yesterday, I think, that I was just like, hey, if you want JB Pritzker to be president, because I've been seeing a lot of people say that, you need to start being a better Jewish ally today. And the comments I got on it were things like, well, where do you stand on Zionism? Are you a Zionist? Do you hate Israel? Are you against genocide? I'm just like, this is exactly what I was saying. Like, you can't have a sentence. You can't let me say, maybe just be a little like more respectful to Jews without saying, well, are you going to kill people? What? You don't say that to anyone from any other culture. You're not saying that to the first Russian you see. You're not saying, do you support what Putin is doing in Ukraine the second you see a Russian person? You're not saying to a Haitian, do you support what your government's doing? You're not saying to someone in India, how do you feel about Modi? You're not saying to someone in Sudan, what do you think of the genocide? Like, how is that okay? Also, I don't live in Israel, but like, how is that acceptable as a first comment? And then it's also fascinating that Jews can't have our own language. Like, we can't, I can't, I'm scared to say I grew up a Zionist, and I don't mean that in the way I don't mean a BB Zionist. I
mm,
mean that my Zionism is why I believe in a free Palestine. Like, that is my entire
mm,
intrinsic identity, is the idea that if I'm raised to believe that people who are wronged by the world deserve self-determination. And by because I'm Jewish, the first thing obviously I think of is that as Jews, we deserve self-determination. We deserve to live somewhere we are safe. We deserve to live somewhere where we don't have to worry about anti-Semitism. And as a result, that means Palestinians deserve to live somewhere that they don't worry um, about people who don't think they should exist, that they aren't bombed to death. Not just that they aren't bombed to death, that they get to have their own culture and their own experience, and that the places that are holy to them get to stay holy, and they get to have water, they get to have food, they get to have not bombs dropped on them, they get to exist as whole human beings. And the other thing is that the way I see it is that the Jews were kicked out of Israel and some Jews stayed. And the way I see it is, and a lot of other people agree with this, is that the Jews that stayed are the Palestinians. That they, because Judaism is older than Islam, and so a lot of them converted and they became Palestinian over thousands and thousands of years. But that's the intrinsic way that I look at it. We're cousins. We're siblings. We are part of the same culture. It's amazing to me people are like, Israelis are white. And I'm like, but we're talking about a wall. We're not talking about a continent. We're talking about a wall. One side of the wall is white and one side of the wall is worthy of your what? And then like there are so many amazing people who were killed on October 7th that were fighting for Palestine. There was Vivian Silver. She used to I think every weekend maybe. She first of all she founded Women Wage Peace with the sister organization Women of the Sun, which was the Palestinian version of Women Wage Peace. She founded, I cannot think of what it's called. It's a school that is for Palestinians and Israelis to go to school together. She founded, and I will send you the link when I think of it. She was intrinsic in everything, like bringing connection to Palestinians and Israelis. And the day before October 7th, on October 6th, there was a march with over 1,000 people through the streets of Jerusalem with women. Palestinian women, Israeli women, diplomats. There were diplomats, women diplomats from all over the world, and they were fighting for peace between Palestinians and Israelis. And she used to, I think it was every weekend, she used to go into Gaza and take kids who were sick and take them to Israeli hospitals because the Israeli government was truly evil and there weren't good. The hospitals in Palestine were too crowded, and so she'd take them to the best Israeli hospitals and get them the treatment they needed. There was Ophir Lipstein, who he was building a pipe system that would go under the wall and bring fresh water to Palestine, because one of the worst things that was happening before this was that Israel controlled their water and their food, and they couldn't get water into Gaza without Israel's approval. Basically, Israel had control of the pipes so he was building other pipes to get water into Palestine without Israel having any say about it. Those pipes were, by the way, taken apart, and Hamas used them to send over rockets. There were these incredible, all the places that were hit on October 7th were kibbutzim, which are socialist communes in Israel, run and supported by, well, they're not totally socialist anymore. The socialist experiment kind of disintegrated, but they were, the last socialist one was one of the ones that was hit. I think it was Barrie, but I might have that wrong. And they were run by Israeli peace activists. They were run by people that have been fighting for a free Palestine for decades. The Free Palestine movement before this was mostly Israelis and Palestinians working together and fighting together for a free Palestine. And so I get so much joy hearing these stories. Like when I was younger, when I was in fourth grade, there was a group that was created called 10,000 Kites. And the idea, at the time it was, there was a wall between the West Bank and Jerusalem. And the idea was that kids were going to be drawing on kites, and kids from all over the world were going to be sending them kites. And there was going to be one day where they were going to fly the kites over the wall to show that on both sides of the wall, there are kids who love flying kites. And all you would you wouldn't see the wall anymore because of the kites flying over it. And there was some sort of attack that happened the day it was supposed to happen, and it never happened. But what I did learn is it sparked something. And there was a kite festival over, I think, the Gaza wall every year until the founder of it was murdered on October 7th. We're seeing a pattern. And so like this idea that we're not together, that we're not fighting for the same thing, that we're not all against genocide, that we're not all the same people who just want peace, and that I have to be scared to have this conversation with you, that I am terrified of the hate that you are about to get in your comment section with this video. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have to be scared to be this kind of Jewish. I shouldn't have to be scared to be a Jewish activist and have that activism be intrinsic to who I am. I can't separate my mom is an Israeli citizen. I can't separate my identity and connection with Israel, not as a government or as a like as a place that is important to my life, and not be true to who I am. And like I cannot tell you how much I hate this government. My mom used to go to protests back in just 20. She was going to protest since Bibi was elected the first time back in the 90s. We have a shirt, many shirts. There's one of our shirts that says boycott settlements, boycott the settlements, not the people. I think the not Israel. It's oh God, I don't remember exactly what it
Mm-hmm.
says. It says boycott settlements in big letters, and it's from the 90s. It's not from now. It's not from last year. It is from the 90s. It is covered in stains. It is that is the essence of what it means in my world to be Israeli. My Israel is has been fighting for a free Palestine forever. Has been fighting for it to be safe for everyone. My Israel is the Israel of Yitzhak Rabin almost getting freedom for getting a deal in place and then being shot and murdered after he sang a song about peace in Israel and Palestine in 94, I think. I think it was really close to when I was born. That's my Israel, the idea it's supposed to be a place of hope for everyone. It's supposed to be a place of hope. And so to see it destroyed like this, I mean, it's hard to ever imagine it feeling like a place that represents that anymore. But then you see the people. I don't know if you've seen this, but I highly recommend following All Hostages. They are a group that is organized by, well, a lot of the hostage families, and they show protests in Israel every week. There are thousands of people. Like, people are like, oh, there are no protests happening. There are more people by ratio, because there are only 9 million people in Israel, protesting weekly in in Israel, than protest on New King's Day. Like, the amount of people there were before October 7th. Bibi was doing what Trump is doing now. Bibi was trying, he put out a 225 bill, basic, like, goal. He put out his own Project 2025, basically. And the first thing he did was Israel doesn't have a constitution, so they don't have three branches of government. They have one and a half. And so their Supreme Court is their DOJ. It doesn't work like the Supreme Court here. And he was trying to dismantle the DOJ or the Supreme Court. And there were protests every day. There were millions of people. A country with 9 million people, the week before October 7th, there were over 1 million people around the country protesting against his government. And like, I have gives me so much hope to see that much protest against someone who's like Trump. It gives me so much hope. I mean, I kept telling people before the election, you don't like Israel, look at what's happening to Israel. That is what's going to happen here. And I just kept repeating it. And yeah, I get
Yeah.
really emotional.
Yeah. You get passionate, and I can feel the passion. And then you have a really important voice in it because it's so nuanced and it's a broader conversation than just like, I support Israel. I mean, it has so much to it. Like, you support peace ultimately.
Yeah.
And so many people in both places want that. And I really hope that happens. I mean, I feel like that's ultimately what we're fighting for, is peace in our world where everyone gets our needs met, but also in other countries, especially Israel and Palestine. Like, that feels so important. And part of what you were saying, it like kind of made me tear up. Like the kites thing, just,
Yeah.
Kids trying to be kids on both sides and have hope for the future. And then that didn't work out ultimately, but we're going to keep trying,
Yeah.
is all that matters.
In the 90s, there was a Sesame Street in Palestine, and so it's called it's Rehov Sum Sum in Israel, and then it's Shara Al Sim Sim in Palestine, and they did a lot of shows together. And they
Oh.
learned that even though they couldn't, like, there's one episode where the Palestinian Muppet and the Israeli Muppet, they can't speak the same language at all, but they can say falafel. And so they literally spend 10 minutes, not 10, like 2 minutes talking using only the word falafel because they're so excited that they have the same word to describe something.
Oh.
And so they were
Mm.
really trying in the 90s to go through the kids. And then there was an episode of Chum Sum Sum that where there's a Palestinian. I don't know if Rehov Sum Sum even exists anymore at this point, but there was a Palestinian kid, uh, a Palestinian Muppet who spoke Hebrew and English and Hebrew and Arabic, and his friend his human friend came to the set, and he couldn't communicate with the Israeli Muppets, and so they just started dancing. And
Ah, the universal language.
this was back in, I want to say, 2014. Like, they've been trying to bring kids together for so
Mm.
long, and it's whenever it happens, whenever it's able to be successful, even just for a short period of time, it matters because both sides are trained to hate each other. They're taught in school to hate each other. And
Yeah.
I mean, I went on Birthright when I was in 2014,
Oh,
and
lucky.
and I was on the first, like, there were specialized trips, and I was on the first music trip. And the so you have Israelis that join you throughout the trip. And so these Israelis, I got off the bus to go to the bathroom somewhere, and they looked at me and they're like, "But there are Palestinians here." And I'm like, "Uh-huh." And I need to go to the bathroom. And they're like, "But they're gonna steal your things." I'm like, "No, they're not. They're just people." They're raised, if they're not raised in like
Oh.
if they're not raised in the peace activist communities, and if they're not raised in those areas, they're raised to hate. And they're not doing it because they want to. They're not doing it because that's how they're raised. And it's the same on the other side. It's the same on everyone is raised to hate each other because the governments want us to hate each other. And it's the same here. We can just transfer that to here. Look at
Yeah.
we can bring it all the way back to trans people. I mean,
Mm.
people don't intrinsically have a problem with trans people. They're raised to. They're raised to have a problem with trans people. They're raised to have a problem with queer people. They're raised to have a problem with immigrants. They're raised to have a problem with people of color. They're raised to have a problem with people who are not like them or who are like them but they're told aren't. It's one
Mm.
reason that I made a post about how it doesn't seem like anyone has actually read Animal Farm, because it feels like we're just living the lesson that wasn't learned from Animal Farm. The idea that, like, when you see someone who's like you or different than you and you're taught to hate, that it
Mm.
bleeds into how you raise other people and how you choose to live your life. And it's all over. It's everywhere. We're all taught to hate each other, and we don't intrinsically hate each other, and we can't get out of it if we're not willing to have these conversations. If we're not willing to
Mm.
be like, "Look, I care about you and I see you and I don't agree with you on this. Why do you feel that way?" Because we can talk this out. We can be human to each other. We don't have to assume the other person is instantly terrible and instantly on the other side of things. It's why it scares me when people say that they're not going to accept former Trump supporters coming over to our side. Like,
Mm.
we have to accept people who we don't necessarily agree with on everything, because that's the only way that we will agree on something. Because if we don't talk to each other, of course we're not going to agree on everything. And I'm getting worked up again.
Yeah, no, I agree. It all comes down to conversations and being willing to like open your heart to see a different point of view that might not necessarily reflect your own, but like we all are human, so we all essentially want the same things. So if we
Yeah.
can like drop our ego and come with like wisdom and compassion, we can find some middle ground where everyone gets their needs met. I feel like it's easier said than done, but human relationships are the hardest thing. They are. And
Yeah.
that's what people struggle with the most. But it's what we need to progress as people. We need to be able to see each other and move past our conflicts that have held us back and not avoid them.
Yeah.
I actually started reading this book today about boundaries, and I realized like I can be avoidant if I don't want to deal with something. And I feel like maybe humanity can be like that too, avoidant or just not wanting to face something head on. But if you can face something with an open heart and knowing that we can work through this because we need to be allies.
Yeah. There's
We
this
need to create a
idea of
better future.
there's this idea of not being able to accept that you're wrong. That's a really big thing right now, that people don't want to admit that they're wrong. And I think
That's
that's
hard.
harming us. That people like that instead of hearing something and being like, oh, okay, let me listen to your point of view. It's, well, you're
Yeah.
telling me that it's like this defensiveness that like you're telling me I'm a bad person because I got something wrong. And like that's not that's not what it is. I'm not saying that you that you're a bad person. I screw up all the time. It's about being able to admit it. It's about being able to hear what other people have to say, and it's about being able to become a stronger person because of it.
Yeah. Being able to admit when you're wrong is an important skill to have. Well, thank you so much, Ariella. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? I mean, where can people follow you also on your platforms?
Yeah, people can follow me pretty much everywhere. The only place I'm not is Twitter, because not
Okay.
going to that hole ever again. Um, but you can
Yeah.
find me under
Save yourself.
Ariella.elm on most platforms, Ariella Elm on some you can put a dot, some you can't. You can find me under Ariella Elm everywhere that you are. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Substack, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Blue Sky and Threads, and
Yeah, I
I even
have
have
your
Reddit.
link. Oh, I have all
All
your
my,
links in the show
all my links are
notes.
in the description. Great.
Yeah.
But you can find me in all those places. And just remember that the world is a better place than you think it is, and to celebrate what is going right, celebrate people who are fighting back, and know that just because you're not seeing that everywhere, and just because you're not seeing everyone saying the right things, doesn't mean that no one is. Look out for, as Mr. Rogers says, look out for the helpers, look out for the people who are really trying to make the world a better place, wherever they may be. And yeah, I think that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your breadth of knowledge and your passion, your enthusiasm. I feel like you just are rich with so much.
Thank
So much
you.
to share, and everyone should follow you and support your work.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
doing
much.
what you
This
do.
has been wonderful.
I hope you liked that episode. Please subscribe, share with a friend, comment. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much for being here. Love and appreciate you.